Coach, as you prepare for Rice and their quarterback, E.J. Warner, both what impressed you the times you faced him when he was at Temple, and now what have you seen him develop in as a quarterback now at Rice?
Yeah, obviously very familiar with EJ. I played against him twice. You know, when he was at Temple, he was excellent. You know, against us last year, really diced us up. Really good passer. Ball gets out quick, makes really quick reads. Really smart quarterback. Done some really good things, you know, versus us and all the things that we present, you know, defensively. And so, I don't know, you know, he didn't play last week, obviously. I think he's questionable for this week, and you'd expect to see him, and we got to be prepared for that, obviously, but really, really good player.
When you're playing against a team that makes a coaching change, I would imagine, and you would probably go back to your memories as a player, it gives players an opportunity to get a new start and to impress new eyes. I would imagine that gives them a lot to play for.
Yeah, certainly does. And, you know, I hate it for Mike. I think he's a really good football coach, and it's a tough business. Hate it for him and his family. And, you know, it's always interesting, especially these changes, you know, during the course of the season. Sometimes it can ignite a football team, and sometimes it leaves a team in a little bit of disarray, and you don't know what to expect, you know, on especially on the offensive side of the football going into this game. So there's some question marks, you know, for us, but you'd expect them to rally and be an inspired football team, you know, when we go down there.
Always important to play well, but also to play well in Texas, a major recruiting spot for you guys. A lot of eyes on the program when you go to Texas. Important whenever you get these games on the road there.
Yeah, Texas is we have around 30 players in our team from the state of Texas, and it's a great area for us in recruiting, and it's good to get down there and get some exposure live down there in Texas. But yeah, obviously we're gonna have to go down there and play well, Scott. This is a good Rice football team. You look at them defensively; they're as good as any defense in the league. You know, and have played some really good games. And, you know, had Tulane on the ropes, and I think Tulane's a really, really good football team. So really impressed by what I see defensively. They got some offensive weapons. Kind of a little bit of unknown going into this game this week. And we're gonna have to be at our very best to go down there and get a win. And we know that.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck.
Thanks, Scott.
Steve Wino.
Brian, I'm just curious. When you look back at the film from the game on Saturday, is there a particular lesson you want guys to learn? I mean, you talked all year about blocking out the noise, good and bad, but is there something particularly lesson from this game?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of them. I think, you know, and I said this after the game, I thought we pressed a little bit, you know, that we did some things that were uncharacteristic, things we hadn't done all year, obviously, you know, with the turnovers, but just from an assignment standpoint, some of the things that we busted in that game, you know, I think had a lot to do with the moment and you know, wanting something so bad that we got outside of ourselves a little bit. I think that's what you saw Saturday, and so there's certainly a lot to take away from it. Things that you know, the typical things that you want to improve on week to week as you watch the film, but also, you know, playing in an environment like that, in a game like that, and how you have to fall back on your training. You have to trust what you're being taught and do your job, you know, to the best of your ability. And definitely a learning experience for us. And I think, you know, we'll be better moving forward from that game and the lessons we can take from it.
Players have talked about being the conference title being one of the team goals for the season. You guys are still unbeaten in conference play. Is that an easy way to sort of shift the flip the switch back for this week, knowing that you guys are still unbeaten in the AAC?
Yeah, I don't think you would need to get a flip switched. I think, you know, these kids are taking it one game at a time, and yeah, that's one of our goals. But the goal is to play as well as we possibly can, week in and week out, and go 1-0, and that's the focus this week. And we do that, you know, we know good things will happen, and the goals that we have will fall into place. But we got to take care of business this week.
Thank you.
Flags.
Hey, Coach, good to see you.
You too, Wags.
Hey, so I didn't hear about this until I came up from the post-game press conference, so I wasn't able to ask you. But on ABC, the sideline reporter stated that Blake Horvath had a thumb injury, I'm told now that he was wearing some sort of protective thing on his hand, which I did not notice during the game, but apparently he took it off after he fumbled on his own goal line. What is going on with his thumb injury, and how much of an impact did that make on the turnovers that he was involved with?
I think that was just Molly McGrath trying to be a good sideline journalist down there and looking for anything. She asked me about it right before the game, and he tweeted the tweet before, but nothing that affected him. He said he took the tape off. It was something to help a little bit, but his thumb's fine.
You don't feel that had anything to do with his fumbles? You don't think it was bothering him? Like when you try to throw, he couldn't grip the ball or anything of that nature?
No, I don't.
And it's not an issue going forward for you?
No.
Okay. In terms of, you just talked about a team firing a coach. With Blake Harrell for East Carolina, they went out and won a game, and it happens a lot. If you go back over history, interim coaches tend to win their first games quite a bit. It's a very odd situation, though, when in the middle of the season you're going to play a team who just fired a coach.
Yeah. And there's the only thing we can do is prepare like we normally do. Wags, you got to anticipate some of the unexpected, and you got to look into the interim coach's background and see what you can dig up and find, and expect to maybe see some things different on the offensive side of the football potentially. But defensively, they've played really well. I don't expect to see any changes on that side of the ball, but yeah, they could come out a very inspired football team. Not to say they haven't been, all along, but it's just the unknown a little bit, Wags. But you don't prepare any differently than you would in a normal game.
So Warner transfers from Temple, and you're like, yeah, this is great. I won't ever have to see him again. And then he turns up at a school that you got on the schedule. That's
right.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, no question. Yeah, he's, like I said earlier, he's a really good football player, and we've learned that, firsthand. And so I think, it helps having gone against him twice, but he's certainly, a good player.
Last for me for now, what are they doing offensively? I have not had opportunity to see Rice play on television. What kind of, are they throwing it around a lot? Are they doing somewhat what Warner?
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty balanced. I've been watching their defense and just kind of now diving into the offensive side of things, but they're balanced offense. And, and when he's in there, they throw around a little bit more. Like I said, they've got some good skilled players. Running back in particular, I think is a really good player. And but they're going to try to be a balanced offense.
Thank you, Coach.
Brian, let me make sure I got my mic on.
You're good.
It's on.
What's the toughest thing in a situation like this, preparing for, a team that just relieved the coach? And I know there's only so many things you can do during the course of a week to try and, switch things up a little bit. But what are the dangers for you on your side in preparing for a team that makes this kind of move?
Yeah, I think maybe, Pete, just the dangers of seeing something you haven't seen before. But, we see that every week. Everybody adds wrinkles and attacks you different ways. And just being who we are and doing what we do and getting really good at those things. And, yeah, you got to look at what they've done, and you got to prepare for that and have a plan. But you got to be ready to adjust and adapt to whatever it is they're doing. Outside of that, nothing really different for us, Pete.
I was going to say, you've talked about the quality of their defense, and that's been pretty solid for the most part all year. When you watch them, what is it about that group that's allowed them to, play fairly consistently good football on that side of the ball?
Yeah, I think they've got really good players. Like what they're doing schematically. They're really aggressive. I think they're, top 10 in the country in tackles for a loss. They're at the top, in our conference and just about every defensive category. But I play a good brand of football. They play really hard. Like I said, they're super aggressive. They're opportunistic. I think they're really well coached.
How do you relay to your guys that, hey, yeah, some things kind of went against us this week, but have them maintain that same aggressive posture that has helped this team build the resume that it's got?
Yeah, I think you show them the film. There were some bright spots, things we did really well, and I think the big message is when we do it the right way, we can play with anybody in the country. And you saw that in spurts, against Notre Dame. Just the margin for error for us, Pete, especially in a game like that, is really small.
Yeah.
And you're not going to beat anybody turning the ball over, the way that we did, and making some of the mistakes, uncharacteristic mistakes that we made in each phase of the game. But when we do it right, you see things like us getting pushed on the offensive line. You see us moving the football. You see us doing some good things defensively, and we fit things right. We have our eyes in the right place, and so there's a lot of positives to take away from it. And I think the important thing is that we look at the tape and we're honest with our guys, and we're accountable to them, and just some things as a coaching staff that we got to look at too in the way that we're doing things to make sure that we're putting them in the best possible position to be successful. But there's some really good things to take away from that game, and the message is we got to learn from it, get better from it, and I think we will. I don't have any doubt about that.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Pete.
We'll make another trip around. Scott Wyckoff.
7 weeks into the season, Coach, how do you like the way your depth is developing?
I'm pretty pleased. Those guys continue to get better and better, and we've had a lot of games where those guys have gotten in. Mostly the games where we had larger leads, and so you get those guys some valuable game repetitions, and you're seeing some growth and development. And got to keep bringing those guys along, though. And you never know when you're going to need them. You get to this time of the year and you're pretty banged up. You're one injury away from being that guy, and so you got to have that approach during practice, and you have to prepare. Whether you're a 2 or a 3, you got to prepare like you're the starter, and that's the constant message around here. And those guys get, the 2s get as many reps as the 1s do, and the 3s get reps too, even this time of year. And so we just got to continue to get better. And when you do get an opportunity, you got to make the most of it, whether that's on OD or on teams, and that's how you build that trust, with the staff and your teammates.
How do you like the way your team's mentality is preparing to go into this run after a conference championship now?
I've been real pleased, with our approach throughout the entire season, on a weekly basis. And when you just look at it in regards of our preparation, and our mindset, I mentioned I thought we pressed a little bit on Saturday. I think we did. But outside of that, I've been really pleased with the approach every week, and the ability to keep the blinders on and to drown out the noise. And I didn't do that as well this past week, probably, as we had previously. That's a good lesson for all of us.
Thanks, Coach.
Steve Wino.
I'm good, Scott. Thank you.
Wags.
So do you just flush that game and not even go worry about looking back upon it? I mean, the bottom line is 6 turnovers. I mean, nobody knows how that game could have gone after you didn't have 6 turnovers. Do you just not even worry about looking at the film? It really doesn't matter going forward.
Yeah, no, you got to look at it, Wags, because there's a lot to gain from watching it, a lot to get better off of, and good and bad. So we look at it, and that's what we use Monday for in these meetings. And then we push ahead to Rice. But we look at it, evaluate it, learn from it, make corrections, build off of it. Then you gotta flush it, and you gotta move on. There's a lot of good stuff to take away from that game, moving forward.
I guess some coaches have said you've learned more from a loss than a win. Obviously that was humbling for the players. I mean, that'll bring you down to earth and real quick after being 6-0.
Yeah, no question. There's a saying where when you win, things get minimized, and when you lose, things get magnified. The approach we've tried to take during these wins is to really magnify the issues. But after a loss, I think the players are a little more dialed into the things that we got to get better at, that we got to get fixed. And so you got to look at those things really hard and tackle them and get better from them.
It's amazing how fans and media to some extent. Navy football received a lot of praise on the way to 6-0, and it's amazing how quickly people started going the other way. I read an article saying Navy's strength of schedule, it just goes to show they hadn't beaten anybody and that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm got all sorts of emails from fans where it's like the team is 6-1 and still has all of its goals ahead of them. It's one loss. I mean, it's amazing how quickly people jump off the band.
Sure. There's no doubt about it. I tell players that all the time. The same guys that are singing your praises one week, all right, will be just the opposite the next. And that's why we talk about drowning out the noise and not reading all this stuff and really not buying into it. And people truly matter to guys in this program. You know, it's good to have fans and all that kind of stuff, but you can't read into that stuff. You know, you just can't. And I really believe the game was a one-off, and we're a much better football team than the way we played Saturday, and that would be a very different game. You know, if there's 3 or 4 plays are different. You know, I know the score looks worse than it is, but we play that game again in a couple of weeks. I think it'd be a very different game. I believe that.
One of the dumber emails I got from a fan was, it's easier to be 1-0 after you win, or it's easier to have the 1-0 mentality after you win than after you lose. Actually, it's the opposite. It's after you win that you should be worrying about whether they have 1-0. I don't think there's worry about 1-0 after you just gotten beaten pretty badly.
Yeah. I don't worry about that stuff, Wags. I don't read it.
Week to week business, Wags. Eat Medhurst.
Brian, my one follow-up is this one of those weeks where you lean on that leadership that you have on your team, and you even study those guys a little bit, because they'll usually give you a pretty good indication of where everybody's at?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't really worry about it. I think we got great leadership, you know, and that's not just when things are going well. I mean, I've been here long enough, I've been around these guys long enough to know just how they're going to respond. I have zero hesitation in saying that these kids will respond the right way. I have no doubt about that. You know, we talk about after the game, just taking ownership of what we need to take ownership of, and you know, pulling the thumb and not pointing the finger. We don't have that. Those kind of guys in our program that would do that. You know, those guys can look at themselves and see what they can do better to help their team win games. And I think we're gonna grow from this, and we're gonna be better for having gone through it.